Week 10 is in the books and we're on to week 11. And as you know, every single week we go over players that, of course, performed well, but we also want to highlight some players that you need to be dropping and some players that you need to be considering adding through the waiver wire in week 11. Before we do that, let's go over some players that really wowed us this week. And for starters, the Bengals 2 stars, Joe Burrow as well as Jamar Chase, were the number 1 and number 2 ranked players in fantasy. Jamar Chase ended a fantastic Thursday night performance with 11 receptions, 17 targets, 3 touchdowns, 264 yards, while his quarterback Joe Burrow threw for 428 passing yards, had 37.7 fantasy points to go along with 4 touchdowns in that game. Bijan Robinson for the Atlanta Falcons continues to tear it up at the running back position. He had 20 rushes for 116 yards, 2 touchdowns, also caught 3 receptions on 4 targets for 28 yards, giving you now his 5th straight game where he is a RB10 option in fantasy. Chuba Hubbard, someone that we didn't think was going to have much of a role, especially because of the return of Jonathan Brooks. However, Brooks has not played since being eligible to return. In week 11, we saw Hubbard have 28 carries, making it a season high to go along with 153 rushing yards, had 1 touchdown, also caught 4 receptions on 6 targets for 16 yards. Going into the bye week, he's now coming off 2 back-to-back 20-plus performances. And to put a bow on all of this, we saw Calvin Ridley continue his hot streak ever since the DeAndre Hopkins trade to Kansas City. He saw 5 receptions on 9 targets for 84 yards and also had 2 touchdowns. He's now had 2 top 5 wide receiver finishes in his last 3 games. Since the DeAndre Hopkins departure, we have seen Calvin Ridley have a 34% target share. We've also seen him average 100 yards per game to go along with 20.4 fantasy points per game. Now that we've gone over the recap, let's go over some players that you need to be making room for by getting rid of them. And the first one is going to be Xavier Worthy from the Kansas City Chiefs. Worthy is now coming off 2 back-to-back single-digit dud performances. He's had 6 targets in 2 weeks. He's also had 3 bad performances in a 4-week span. So someone for me that is just not being able to really secure the ceiling that we were anticipating that he would have to begin the season. Worthy is a drop for me heading into week 11. Another one is going to be running back Javonte Williams from the Denver Broncos. I've been really high on the talent that Javonte Williams provides. However, he only had 1 carry in week 10 versus Kansas City, and Estime, his running back counterpart, got to see 14 carries for 53 yards. Looks like Sean Payton found his guy, so for me, Javonte Williams is going to be someone that you cannot trust and is worthy of a cut. Next is going to be Dalton Kincaid from the Buffalo Bills, and this is tough because I was really anticipating a really huge uptick in production, especially going into this season with Diggs being gone, and he's saw 5 targets this past week. Since week 2, he's had more than 4+ targets in every single matchup. However, in 10 games, he's had 7 single-digit performances, someone that you just can't rely on a weekly basis. So Kincaid for me is a drop right now going into week 11. Next one is going to be wide receiver Jordan Addison for the Minnesota Vikings. He seems to be the odd man out, especially now with TJ Hawkinson back into the mix. And simply put, in his past 7 games, he's had 5 games with single-digit production. Someone that you just can't rely on right now, and at best is someone that you can stash, but for now, someone that you cannot even play in your starting lineups. And lastly, with the return of Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason is now a must-cut. Mason only saw 1 touch this past week, for me, giving me the clear indication that CMC has a strong grasp of a workhorse role. There's no other running back here that you would really want unless you're going to stash him as a handcuff. And even with CMC out in his past 5 games, Jordan Mason has not really produced. He has not even given us a double-digit production game in that span. Hey, we're about to go over some players that you should be adding, but before we do so, most of you are not subscribed to the channel, so if you're getting value, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Let's go over the players that you should be adding going into week 11. And the first player is going to be Audric Estime. This is the running back out of the Denver Broncos. He's currently only rostered in 1.1% of ESPN rosters. He saw a season high 14 carries, 53 yards, and he also saw 2 of 3 red zone carries, showcasing Sean Payton's trust in the running back. Javonte Williams also saw his fewest opportunities since week 3, giving me the green light that Estime is going to be someone that's going to have a role in this offense. The next one is going to be Gus Edwards, who actually returned from IR. Currently, he's only rostered in 20.6% 50% of ESPN rosters. He saw 10 rushes in his return for 55 yards. And even though he may not be an immediate starter, Gus Edwards at least is giving us a glimpse into what is going to be a running back by committee, considering that both Gus Edwards as well as J.K. Dobbins are already familiar with offensive coordinator Greg Roman, who is a run-first coordinator. At the very least, Gus Edwards is someone that you may want to consider for a flex spot if you are in a pinch or if you're looking to fill in for any kind of bye week option. Next one is going to be Ricky Pearsall from the San Francisco 49ers. He's currently only rostered in 25% of ESPN rosters, coming off a game where he had 4 receptions on 6 targets for 73 yards and a touchdown. In his 3 games that he's played this season, he has had 5 touches in every single outing. With Brandon Ayuk out for the season and CMC now back into the mix, this will at least open up better opportunities for other skilled players within this San Francisco 49ers offense. And now onto a quarterback that you should be adding, and that's going to be Russell Wilson from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wilson is currently rostered only in 40.2% of ESPN rosters. He's coming off a game where he had 195 passing yards with 3 touchdowns. He's now had 2 of his last 3 games with multiple touchdown performances. He's also a good stream option considering that we're going to have Kyler Murray as well as Baker Mayfield going into bye weeks. And the last one is going to be someone that is just coming off their bye week, and it actually is only rostered in 50.3% of ESPN rosters. And that's going to be wide receiver Cedric Tillman out of the Cleveland Browns. As I mentioned, he's coming off his bye week. He's actually coming off 3 straight games before the bye where he had 12 targets, 9 targets, 11 targets, and he's been someone that's averaged 22.2 fantasy points during that stretch. So he is clearly having a strong grasp of that wide receiver 1 role in Cleveland, and someone that is still worth rostering considering that he's still out there for you. Hey, thank you so much for making it to the very end of this video. I hope you got value in it, and if you did, do me a solid, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and be sure to check out some of these other videos that I have here on the channel that will help you out with your fantasy rosters. Best of luck to you as you head into waivers. Until then, take care, God bless, peace.